Oh, hi there. Welcome to It's Your Garden, the gardening show for the non-professional gardener, brought to you by a non-professional gardener. Today, we are going to be digging some raised beds. The first bed that we're going to dig is sort of just a traditional bed. We're going to use a technique called double digging in order to do that. First, to start with, the reason raised beds are helpful is that they take up less space. A lot of the space in a traditional garden is spent just on the paths between the rows of your crops. And with a raised bed, you don't expend any space for footpaths. All of your plants are right there. Usually, raised beds are only about 4 feet across, and that's so that you can reach into the bed to do whatever weeding you need to do. This is the #1 rule of a raised bed, is don't stand in your raised bed. The reason for that is that along with saving space on your rows, a raised bed the soil is worked to be unpacked. Regular ground is super hard from years and years and years of getting packed down. In our raised bed, we're going to use a couple of different tools. One is our digging fork, and we're going to work the soil with this to kind of fluff it up. So actually, even though our raised bed is going to appear that the soil is about 6 or 8 inches higher than the ground around it, I'm not actually going to add any soil. I am going to add a little bit of compost to enrich the soil, but I'm not going to add any dirt. So a lot of people think you need to buy a bunch of fill dirt in order to make a raised bed, and that's not actually completely necessary, although it is a little less back-breaking than double digging. Double digging is a technique where you take a wheelbarrow and you dig out. We're going to dig several trenches in order to make our bed. We're going to start with the first trench. We're going to dump the spits from the first trench into our wheelbarrow. Then we're going to start a second trench right next to the first trench. We are going to dump the dirt from the second trench into the first trench. We're going to put the spits of grass upside down so that they don't grow up and cause us any weed problems in our bed. And then after we put those spits of grass in, we will dig another shovel deep and loosen that up, add some compost to it, and then we will start flipping the grass from our next bed, or our next trench, into the second trench. We'll continue this process of digging a trench, filling in the next trench into the first one, and digging another one until we get the length of our bed. But for now, we are going to map out the space that our bed is going to go in. Our wheelbarrow, that's where our first spits of grass are going to go. A spit of grass is just the chunk of dirt with grass. It's called a spit, the amount of dirt that a shovel can hold. So we've got part 1 of our first trench dug. Each trench that we're digging, our measuring tool is going to be our shovel. We're going to dig the trenches 1 shovel width wide and 1 shovel deep. So you can see my shovel is about flush with the ground now. So we want to make sure we're about a shovel deep and a shovel wide all the way along our trench. You always see in like movies and stuff, people are always putting their shovel in and then kicking it. You can do that if you want, but really just hurt your foot and it'll tear up your best pair of boots. So what I like to do is just really stab with the shovel, not try to kick it into the ground. We've got our hole dug. Now we're going to use our fork and stab down into the dirt, the depth of the tines, and really get that soil worked up. As we work it up, we're going to add in some compost, and then we're going to start on our second trench right here. This is where the term double digging comes in, because as we dig our second trench, we're going to flip the spits of grass upside down into our first trench. So we just dug a trench, and now we're digging the second one, and the dirt from that one goes right into the first. We're going to hold our first trench of dirt in this wheelbarrow until we get to the end, And then on our last trench, we will empty the dirt from the first trench into the last trench. And so it's sort of this rolling cycle of digging into the trench over and over. So we're breaking it up so it's nice and loose. So that way, when we plant in here, it is easy for the plants to root down. Also, during this time, we're going to be picking out any rocks that we find to, once again, make it easier for the plants to grow. Just to give you some perspective, how many rocks we got out of our garden. Got a whole wheelbarrow, yeah, still more. Lots of rocks. Pretty rocky soil. Makes it hard to dig. I got some good helpers today helping me pick up rocks. This is classic Smith style to have your children picking up rocks from the garden. It is day 2 of our raised bed project. You can see we've still got a lot of digging to do. It's been a few years since I have double dug a bed, and I remembered that it was very hard work. Turns out it's really hard work to dig. If you want to just get fill dirt and then add some compost to it, I will not judge you for not digging up your yard. But if you can't go to the store because, you know, you're trying to self-quarantine and you have a shovel, this is a way you can make a garden bed. We're going to get back at it and hopefully finish this today so that we can start getting some of our vegetables in the ground. There you have it. That is how you make a raised bed without buying a bunch of fill dirt. I think I'm just going to stick with the one for now, at least until I can pick up a shovel again. Thanks for watching It's Your Garden. I hope that you will get outside and get your hands in some dirt and get something planted and have fun, because remember, it's your garden. And then each of the holes in the cinder block kind of works as a little compartment for you to plant various and sundry other plants. There's a bumblebee. All